Hello and welcome back to Mama Yaya Soy. I am Yael and I'm so excited to have you here. So I have a little question for you. Do you want to start a homeschool? Whether you have made the decision to start homeschooling this new year or you're on the fence about it, stay tuned because I'm going to talk about some critical details you'll need to know. Without further ado, let's get into it. Personally, I began my homeschool journey in July of 2020. So this whole process is very fresh in my mind. I'm going to take you through three overarching categories today. The first is I want to talk a little bit about helping you really make that final decision and be confident on your choice to homeschool. Number two, we're gonna talk about all the legalities and things that you need to know in terms of your homeschool state laws. The last thing I wanna talk about is deschooling. What is it? Why are some people doing this? And why I recommend it to you as you start your homeschool journey. Is homeschooling right for you? This can be a very daunting and difficult decision to come to, especially if you yourself have not been homeschooled and you don't know too many people that are doing it. Even if that is your situation, here are some things you can think about in order to really propel you into making that final decision. Why are you considering homeschooling this year? What draws you to homeschooling? Did you consider homeschooling prior to the pandemic? What makes you excited about homeschooling? What makes you nervous and hesitant about homeschooling? And what are some of the other questions that you have about homeschooling aside from how to get started? Because we're about to get into that. I would highly encourage you to write all of these things down and really start to do some soul searching around this idea of homeschooling. As you're going through this process of answering these questions, I want you to be encouraged by the following. Homeschooling may not be for everyone, but everyone who is committed and dedicated to helping their children learn and grow can homeschool. I say this because no matter what your educational background is, you have something very valuable and special to offer your children, and that is you. You will not always choose the right curriculum or activity for your child, but at the end of the day, what matters is that they have you and that you were there in their most critical moments of learning and growing. Another thing you can do that is a little basic but can be very helpful is creating a list of pros and cons. This is something that I did along with my partner in order to make a final decision. Once you've made your list of pros and cons and you've answered some of these questions, be confident in what you are deciding to do and make a decision. After that, take things one day, 1 week, 1 month at a time, because things will change very quickly. And sometimes with all of that transition and change, life can get really overwhelming. Whew, take a deep breath because we're gonna get into all the legals. There are 4 things you need to know in terms of the legal situation. Number 1, find and learn the homeschool laws in your state. Every single state has their own way of doing things, so that is the very first thing you need to do. Number 2, you are going to apply, create, and register your homeschool in your state. If your child is currently enrolled in a public school, number 3 will be to withdraw your child from the school. And last but not least, number 4, you are going to write and submit a letter of intent. Let's talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. In terms of getting to know the laws and requirements for homeschooling in your state, you can visit hslda.org/legal, which is also linked in the description below. And this website gives you an overall look at homeschooling state by state. And it also does a good job of showing you which states are a little bit more strict in their regulations and which states require less of you in terms of homeschooling requirements. If you click on the details for your state, it will give you specific steps on how to comply with your state's regulations. When I was starting, I did not know about this website, and I just typed in Department of Education for my state, went there, and I searched for homeschool or home education. Either one of those gave me details on what I needed to do and what the entire process was for my state. Go ahead and navigate to those appropriate websites in order to find all of these details laid out for you. Once you have found all of the laws and requirements for your state, you want to start a paper trail. You want to make sure that you are opening files on your computer that are specifically dedicated to keeping all of these things in one place. You want to make sure that you have everything in place and that you know what your rights are and what you will need to submit on a quarterly or yearly basis if your state requires you to do so. Once you create those files or dedicated a space for printed files in your home, make sure that you have downloaded all of those state laws and requirements and start the process of applying. When you apply for a homeschool and you create and register your own homeschool, you can also choose different types of homeschooling, anywhere from single home homeschooling, which is something that I'm doing right now. You can also do co-ops where you're going in and doing school with other children for a time period, and then for the rest of the week, you are doing school at home. There's so many different ways you can do this, and so that's something that you will also decide during this application process. In my case, my state required that I go through the process of applying for a homeschool, and then I registered my homeschool. I gave it a fun name, and once I was approved to start this homeschool, my state provided me with a letter of intent, or as they called it, an acknowledgement letter, that I then sent to the principal, the superintendent, and this is a very important step. This is something that is required in a lot of states. Now, a scenario might come up where after you send your letter of intent, an email comes back that says, well, what if we can accommodate you this way or do this and that for you? But you've already made your decision. Make sure that you stick with it and that you don't feel any guilt or remorse about the decision you've made for your family. It's a hard thing to do, to withdraw a child from a school, especially if you have a case like mine where you were very connected to the school, to the teachers. But at the end of the day, if this is the decision you've made, this is the decision you've made. Wish them well and start to focus on what's in front of you, which is this new homeschooling adventure. With that said, let's talk about deschooling and what in the world that is. It is so challenging to start the process of homeschooling, get all of the paperwork in, you've just created this school, there's a lot of excitement, and the first thing that often pops up in a lot of our minds is curriculum. What do I need to do? What do I need to buy? I would like you to just put a little pause on that for a moment, take a deep breath, and say, I will not think about curriculum. Just not right now. Personally, I highly recommend that you and your family spend some time deschooling. Deschooling is an intentional period of time in which you and your child or children process the experience of school. Talk about everything that you liked about it or didn't like about it. If you have gone through traditional schooling, process that with them so that you can start to see some of the things that you want to leave behind and take up in your homeschool. This is also a precious period in which you and your child or children are spending quality time together, doing fun things, discovering things, resting, and starting to get to know what this homeschooling is going to look like for you and your family. Processing school experiences with your child and spending quality time with them is really going to help you all understand your identities outside of school and start to help you realize what are the most important things for you and your children on a daily basis. This is something that I failed to do in the beginning, and I highly regret it. I'm kind of doing this process of deschooling right now with my children, and I wish that I had spent some time doing that before we jumped into everything. For us, we spent about 3 weeks deschooling. And my child had gone through kindergarten, and so I felt like 3 weeks was enough time for us to kind of like really do some soul searching and really get to know each other and be excited about some things. And now I feel like we are starting to be ready for the next step, which is going into our next semester with a fresh start and a fresh outlook on what our homeschool really is. If you're looking for some more ideas on how to do the deschooling thing, you can check out a link that I have below. It gives you all kinds of ideas of things you can do with your kids as you are processing school together and as you are preparing for this new adventure of homeschooling. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope this video was helpful for you. As always, remember to subscribe. I have so much more content coming to you about homeschooling, schedules and routines, different activity ideas, curriculum reviews, all of these things. I wish you so many blessings on your homeschooling journey this year. You can do it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.